就和对标上的凤凰一样，浴火重生承载着我们舰队时的愿望，这团火焰要继续燃烧下去。
我们不会为遗憾找借口，不管走到哪一步，那就是自己的实力体现。这回我相信苏宁可以一飞冲天。
几个月前，谁能想到我们会站在这里？几天之后，谁又知道我们将走得多远？
如果我们能杀出重围，请不要诧异。
Hello and welcome to the Summer Flames. Don't know if you could hear me there for a second. I'm Paul. This is Clement. I've got Raz alongside me coming in for this one. And see the King behind me as well. Guess the other side. There you go. We'll be getting into this much very shortly. How are you doing, guys?
Doing well. I mean, we just came off of, remember, we're in a gauntlet of playoff runs. So we already had the 2 last sets for round 1s. And then, funny enough, you know, TOP. Feeling pretty tired already. 2 days before this, they had to go up against their previous opponent, Suning Gaming, and now they have to go up against RNG.
Yeah, they did indeed. However, they put on a very good showing for themselves, and I'm specifically looking to the man in mid lane as well. But let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket and see how we're doing so far, because we've got the first round completed now. We're now moving into our quarterfinals of playoffs, so we'll see how the teams are shaping up. You can see that, as we said, round 1 complete, and now we've got RNG and TOP today.
And in round 1, both times the higher seed did manage to claw their way throughout the bracket. Now here is a big challenge for TOP, because if they want to get into the regional qualifiers, they do have to take out RNG today. They will be tied if they both drop out on this bracket with JD Gaming, but then it comes down to net wins, and they're very far behind JD Gaming. It is a must-win scenario for TOP.
It's a tough task, 100%. And remember, RNG would be watching all 4 of the games that Suning had played versus TOP, so they are primed and ready for today's matches.
Yes, they are, and already spoiled it, but it is RNG versus TOP today. They will have to go on to face Rogue Warriors as well, the winner of today as well. So no small task moving on for the rest of the tournament. But when we take a look at these two teams, you know, it's TOP versus essentially the golden age of RNG right now. There doesn't seem to be like anything that they can't win. Even 3 of their members go over to Asian Games and they just take that one too.
Yeah, so immediately we go towards MSI performance, Rift Rivals performance, Asian Games, where a good portion of the team did go, as you had mentioned, but also their coaching staff. So for them, there was so much confidence of how they were running this split that they could just represent China. So for this squad coming in today, the expectation is not only that they can get to the finals, because they've done that 5 times in a row. RNG have been rolling through this one consistently. So for this team this year, everyone globally is expecting the best of them, so they have to take the first step.
And I think it's really important to see how they're actually doing in their own domestic league. RNG, the way they've revolutionized the game is that there is no other team that we've seen that has such precise teamfight control. Remember back in MSI, they said if they went up against Kingzone, Kesman was saying they had a 90% chance if it went down to a late game teamfight. So I really want to get the graphics up and really talk about RNG and how they're doing so far in this split. I think the first thing you have to notice is that they're actually a very slow team. We have a lot of teams that, you know, when people think about a Chinese team, they think Chinese aggression, they think fast-paced. Yep. But RNG are actually one of the slowest teams. They're the least bloodiest team, and they do like to play 1-3-1 and stretch it out to the late game. Our second point will tell you why. King's Tribute. Uzi is the most gold-intensive player, not only in the LPL, but in the entire world. 25.6% of the gold on his team does go to him. They are banking very heavily on him to get to that late game on a 3-item Kai'Sa, on a 3-item Xayah, and close the game out for them. And the final point we have is that in those team fights, they're so good at getting the precise coordination down. Remember MSI, game 4, it did go down to them. One combo team fight, they were able to take it entirely away. Those crucial picks that give them initiation, like the Ornn and the Rakan, are the big things we have to look for.
And to just echo that point about the resources in RNG going solely in towards their carry, as you can see Letme's face is wild and out there, you're right about Uzi. And for Uzi, a lot of it comes down to the confidence once the resources are put into him, but it's also surprisingly enough Xiaohu. So for damage percentage for this team, just compared to their competition throughout the regular season, it is so focused on both Xiaohu and Uzi that if either of them dies in the team fight, sure, they still end up winning it just on the skill alone, but that's when they're the most challenged. So I wonder what we're going to be seeing out of TOP. I know that TOP as a squad, they look to either dive an AD carry threat or they just go for picks. I think that's very effective in terms of just strategy-wise, but just talking about it. RNG feels so confident about their play style that I'm surprised they're changing anything at all.
Yeah, definitely not going to change. But I also think that could be an obstacle going against TOP because, like we said, TOP in the pre-20 minutes, they're the best team at setting up team fights. They had the highest win rate in that time period. So if RNG play things a little bit too slow, they could find themselves in a very mucky situation where TOP had the early game comp.
Yeah, is that, and they also have their playmakers as well. And I'm, of course, looking to the mid lane specifically with Korn, because Korn, in his matchup coming into the quarterfinals, I mean, he was the guy. If you wanted something to happen, it's going to be coming out of Korn. So many playmakers coming out of him. You think of the Yasuo, the Aurelia that we saw the other day as well, including LeBlanc. This guy will make the plays happen. And what did you say, Clement? It's like contain Korn. Yep. And what didn't happen?
Yeah.
They didn't contain Korn, and then Korn was all over the map, and he just pretty much killed everybody before the game got rolling.
They couldn't handle him. Even in the games in which TOP had lost versus Suning Gaming, he was the most consistent player in the series. And then in the regular season, the reason why they stayed to Korn instead of switching between him and Goong was simply because Korn was performing. Not only was he up to par with his past early game focus, but also just incredibly consistent around the late game. And so here you see him, 2014, at that world stage in the finals, and he was alongside Uzi. So this set means so much to him because not only had he not been in an LPL playoffs run since 2014 summer, but that 2014 summer is something that he will think about so often. And then going up against Uzi today, up against RNG, is a monumental task for him. He's playing up to stuff, and I want to see how he does today.
I think for him, it's about proving that the collapse of RNG after Uzi left the team was not completely on himself, that he can play up and join the likes of RNG in terms of their game strength. And he's been doing it so well on those Assassins. The Aurelia we saw, the 6.3 KDA coming out from him. And he actually did very well against Xiaohu in their match against RNG. Even though that was a 0-2 series, they still could not keep Korn down in the mid lane on his Assassins.
This is by far the best split that he's played professionally throughout his career, because even on that world stage, a lot of people will look at that not globally but just in the domestic region as well in China and will say, well, he didn't deserve it. It was Uzi carrying the entire lineup and then Insec having his plays over here or there on the side.
Yeah.
But then so for him to come off that stage and then really have that redemption arc, even going into the LSPL and then changing his name to Miss, so really got that Rocky montage going. He comes back on that stage, goes on to TOP, and so now you're seeing that surge in his career, which is a very late part of his career. So for him, all of it comes down to today.
Yeah, reclaims his name and will be hopefully taking some names today as well. But then we take a look at the RNG roster for Game 1, and it's not what you would expect. You know, because we're talking so much about Uzi, and it's just like, look at this guy. He's the king right now. It's not even Uzi starting.
Exactly.
It's Abel down in the bottom lane.
And that has to be such a bummer for Korn. I really feel like it's his moment where it really raises his morale, and he goes like, Uzi, do not hide behind your teammates. Come out and face me. It's going to be that moment where he is going to be looking for Game 2 and Game 3. But I want to talk a little bit about why they are starting Abel. We are moving into a 7-man Worlds roster, and Uzi has been having recurring back injuries, hand injuries. I think it's a wise choice to give the new guy a little bit of playoff experience. He has played 0 games in the playoffs so far, but has done really well in the regular summer split. So a great time to reward him and get him under some high-pressure games.
That being said, remember, it took some time for them to bring out Uzi during the regular season. And the reasoning behind that is, okay, you're going to save him, hide him a little bit. Bring him out when it's ready. Bring him out when it matters the most, and playoff time is what matters the most. So when you come to the final playoff time, and for him to be not starting out, honestly, this is when it feels like they're getting a little bit too confident. This is when you're coming out and saying that, sure, it's a best of 5, let's try new things out. This is not when you should be doing that. Remember, RNG, they have the points from Spring Split, but they should not be riding on that because Rogue Warriors have a lot of points. Invictus Gaming could take the split, and there's a very real possibility if they lose this series that they drop down into the gauntlet run.
Yep.
And so for me, this seems like a very risky play.
Yeah, very, very important stuff for them. But then we have to take a look at how they're actually going to win this game. But before we do that, we're going to take a look at the starting rosters. It's Moyo in the top lane, XX in the jungle, Korn in the mid, with Chocho and Cat in the bottom. So no Lai starting today, so probably not going to be an Urgot blind pick.
Yeah, so one thing we're going to be looking towards is Moyo and XX getting MVP performances in the last series, and Korn riding it out. So for TOP, they're going to be playing on the top side of the map. That's been more consistent for them.
On the opposite side, it will be Zatai starting in the top lane with MLXG in the jungle, Xiaohu in the mid lane, Abel in AD carry, and Ming alongside him.
Definitely more of an experimental roster coming out from RNG. These are not the main starting players that they have in the top lane, in the jungle, or at the ADC position. So a bit of a new flavor coming out from them, probably trying to train their B unit.
That being said, training out veterans feels like a bit too much. I'll say this in the sense that MLXG has so much experience, easily. Is a gold medalist because they brought him to Asian Games as well. Zatai was in Rift Rivals. They came in Rift Rivals too. So if we're talking about just outright experience, RNG had that over TOP tenfold. 4 of the players of TOP don't have any LPL playoff experience. It's only Korn that has that. So for TOP, we're talking about his outright experience. RNG is going to trump them in every way, shape, or form. It has to come as a challenge to TOP to be able to rise to the occasion.
Now, how do they actually play out this game? Are they still going to be playing towards the bottom side? Are you then looking towards the jungle, the top lane? Because we have many different factors coming into this game.
I think for TOP, you definitely have to take it early to RNG, play on their tendencies to go for the late game. And one thing I really like is playing mages in the bot lane for Chocho. Now, Chocho in the interview said, why do I play mages? Because I don't die in lane and I'm useful in team fights compared to ADC. If they can shore up their bot lane weakness, which has traditionally been tremendous against RNG, then they have a stable footing to then focus on the top and mid.
And there's one strategic aspect here for RNG, because even, taking out Uzi, you'd think that's kind of crazy. Abel does play early game AD carries. Draven comes to mind. And if you're looking at this series and you're looking down the barrel of Chocho and saying, wait a minute, Chocho, you have the worst stats when you're comparing to the AD carries of the LPL. Let's see if I can pick Draven and just stomp the laning phase. So if I'm looking to RNG, that's one option here. If that fails, then very easily it's a best of 5 and they can just ship Uzi back in. It's not a Cody Sun situation for RNG. He's not back at home. He's still in the RNG venue. So what I'm expecting out of RNG is for them in a Game 2 situation, if it does not work out to plan, they bring Uzi back in.
Now, is that the expectation heading into Game 1 that is actually TOP favored with this, not quote-unquote sub-roster coming in?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. The last time they also played with Abel, and it was a 0-2 experience. But I want to focus a little bit on why they bring MLXG. There is one stat that MLXG does better than Karsa, and that is camp the mid lane. 44% of his ganks go towards the mid, and I think that's an adaptation to keep Cool down. They saw what happened in the previous set. They know Cool can go off. He has gone off. So getting those two, the more familiar duo, into the mid lane, I think is going to be the core strategy and going to be the core focus for RNG in this Game 1 with Abel.
Yeah, so being able to go up against TOP and take Korn down is going to be really monumental. What I'm going to look at this, because I already talked about taking down the bottom lane with Abel. That's a possibility where they're just trying to take the early laning phase. And you're right about that MLXG. He's a lot more brute force than Karsa is. Karsa is going to be like, Raptor Camp, I'll meet you. I've timed it, my friend. So he's the type of guy to just be a lot more mathematical in his approach and a lot more efficient. And he won't outright just go for lane ganks, other than if he's trying to give Uzi a little bit of love and attention. MLXG, fight. Look for your red buff, but he won't go for the red buff. He'll go for your face. He'll go for the mid lane ganks quite frequently, go for the top lane ganks, maybe help out Zatai. So I wonder if this is RNG just saying, we're testing you out in Game 1. We're just going to try and force it in the first 10 minutes and see what we can do.
Now, do you guys think that RNG are still trying to hide what they're fully capable of? Because I know that we were casting the JD match, and I know that they only showed one strategy, and they did it over and over and over again. And hey, they still managed to win the series. Here today, they're moving in different people off of their bench now and looking towards maybe different tactics. And they're still trying to hide moving into semi-finals because they have a long way to go. They've got to go through Rogue Warriors, then them got to go potentially to the finals as well.
All I'm going to say is this is definitely not their strongest roster. They're definitely testing things out, and when things get heated, they will bring Uzi back onto the bench. You should not expect them to go through with this the entire set.
And we know RNG to be a team that has an expansive strategic pool during the regular season. Hell, they brought both MLXG and Carson in the same game to buff this man's graves up. So 100%, 1,000% I believe that there are strategies that they're holding tight. And going into the next series, if they take this one, that Rogue Warriors have to have in the back of the mind that they still have strategies that they haven't seen yet. Because RNG is working with a lot here, knowing exactly what TOP's been showing in the last games, especially during the regular season. And then if they're able to take this series, they're going to be looking to take the throne once again.
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? Because TOP got pushed to the limit, and we pretty much saw everything. It's just like, if you're not showing everything that you potentially have going to a final game in this series, then what are you doing at this point? We've just got time for a quick prediction. So, Clement, who's it going to be?
I'm going to go with 3-1 RNG. I feel like there's a good chance that TOP can take game 1, but the King's going to come back to finish out the series.
And Raz?
I'll say 3-0 RNG. I had faith 10 minutes ago, but then you start thinking about the lanes, and you're like, I just don't know. TOP has to prove it to me.
All right, well, we'll see if that's going to be the case.
I switched
you didn't even tell our production.
That's only what you said before. All right, I'm going to get this guy out of here. We're going to send it over to the casters to get us into game.
What's up, guys? It's me, your resident KitKat analyst here, as well as the resident Bjergsen cosplayer of China, Zach Rusty Pie, bringing you today's matches between TOP as well as RNG. And nothing's changed, Rusty. I've been gone from the LPL for some time, but come back, look at the analyst desk, and Raz has flip-flopped once again.
Yeah, I mean, those things will always stay the same. Now, we are, of course, in Champ Select for game number 1. It's the quarterfinals, Fish. Keep that in mind, between TOP and RNG, and we're already racing through the bans and the picks so far, so feel free to catch us up as we've gone through.
Yeah, because we have Akali, Alistar, as well as Swain being banned out by RNG. Aatrox, Kai'Sa, and Rakan taken away by TOP. They first picked Varus and followed up with Camille, as well as Tahm Kench later on in the draft. Whereas for RNG, they went for Gragas and Tristana first, and they've picked up Ryze for Xiaohu in the mid lane.
Yeah, so TOP on their side first, they've gone towards a lot of bot lane utility and a lot of mobility through that lane as well. The Varus and the Tahm Kench being able to get around the map, something that Cholchol and Cat are very good at doing. Of course, also controlling their lane is something that they have a little thing towards themselves. Now, Tristana was the response to the Varus on the opposing side here from RNG. That's not something that wins lane very well unless your support is like hyper aggressive, and I think of an Alistar, but they banned that, so they don't even have that as an option for themselves. And I'm curious to see where they go down in that bottom lane, and if in some crazy world that Gragas is already an early flex down in the support role.
Well, support's already being targeted by TOP. Shen's being taken away as the first ban of the second ban phase. Galio being banned out here by RNG. It's still patch 8.16. So the small nerfs that have gone Varus's way in 8.17 have not applied just yet. So a little bit of saving grace for Cholchol in that bottom lane. If they do see the aggressive support, he'll have the extra health to deal with some of the damage.
And a lot of mid lane focus in the second ban phase from RNG, getting rid of the LeBlanc and the Galio, taking things from Korn, and Urgot is the other one that we'll talk about in a second. Now, a lot of this mid lane focus against Korn. Not only is it Korn against his former team, or his former organization, I should say, Uzi not playing this time around, he's been playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
You know, one big champion that still stands out to me is the Aurelia, but with a very early rotation of the Ryze and the banning of LeBlanc and Galio, they are trying to limit his options. They are trying to force him into something that may not be ideal. And when you look at the composition of TOP, they need a bit of magic damage still.
Yeah, Aurelia kind of fell off recently, but has Rose in patch 8.16 has been a popular pick once again. Still up for grabs if either team wants to pick it up, especially if Korn wants to try and take it to the mid lane, but we haven't seen what they're going to pick just yet. Xin Zhao's locked in for MLXG in the jungle. And we've got Narb as well as Kennen being hovered here by TOP, but they do go for Gnar eventually, being locked in as the top lane pick for TOP. Moyu will be picking that one up. Now left to see what the final pick for TOP is going to be. Hovering over a few picks.
I mean, Orianna would be a very good pick for them here if they want to lock this one in. As far as I'm concerned, Orianna rounds out their team composition by having the Camille available. So the composition looked pretty clean from them, honestly, overall. Got some hard engage available. They can follow that through with some complementary engage, let's say, of the Orianna.
Yes, the Korn doesn't go towards that Bruiser. Instead, as you mentioned, going towards a mage first to duel with Ryze in the mid lane. Final pick for RNG is going to be the support unless they flex Gragas into the bottom lane. So we could still see that aggressive support. We could see it, a jungle being picked up for MLSG instead. Oh, sorry, Xin Zhao being picked up as the jungle means that Aurelia does get picked up, and it is Gragas as the support in the bottom lane.
Yeah, it confirms the Gragas going into the support role, but what it doesn't do is say whether Ryze or Aurelia will be going just yet. Aurelia is one of those OG counter picks to the Gnar, something that has a lot of aggression in that lane, and something that we said after the Aurelia rework was actually a better counter to the mini Gnar. When you actually put the Ryze potentially in that top lane, however, Ryze still does well. So honestly, for RNG, their top lane draft is just top %. They're going to have to pick themselves into what is the better mid lane matchup and what is better in the 2v2 with the jungler. Xiaohu is a god tier Ryze, so that's the matchup they've chosen.
On top of that, for RNG, they've already shown in the past that this is a team that can flex their top lane and mid lane players. Xiaohu can go into the top lane, he can play top side of the map if he wants to. Tai played pretty much half a split as the mid lane player for RNG.
Yeah, he did. And Xiao spent a lot of that playing the bottom lane as well.
He did.
So they're a flexible side, but this time, of course, they've got 3 different substitute players in as the starting roster. With this roster in place, they should be much more of a conventional front-to-back type of team, trying to work around Abel on the Tristana, but they didn't build a protect the Tristana, you know, one carry composition. They built a multitude of carries in a multitude of areas, and if one of them snowballs, it could be dangerous. But for me, the risk is that one of them gets snowballed against them. You know, playing strong side and weak side is the big question mark I have here for RNG, and if they are capable of doing it.
It's almost a tragedy that Abel is playing on the same roster as Uzi, because Abel's split for the entirety of 2018 has been fantastic in every single game that he's played, whether it be the LPL or Demacia Cup or any other tournaments. Abel has looked fantastic. Now you combo that with the fact that going into international events recently, you can only bring 6 players. I know there are talks about expanding that into 7 potentially in the future. We'll have to see if that actually happens for international events, but even then, you're still taking Kasi, you're still taking Tatai or Let Me. So it's such a difficult prospect for him. Abel's having such a great split, but he is in the shadows.
I mean, he's behind
Uzi,
the best player in the world. Best AD carry, I should say, in the world for certain. So when you look at this, you know, it's not an easy thing for Abel, but this is actually a very good opportunity for him. If you throw all of that to the side, Abel now gets to come into playoffs and prove himself against some of the best. He's going to be against Cholcho and Cat, and this is his opportunity to stand in the spotlight and say he has what it takes on the main stage.
For game 1 at least, TOP will be trying to upset the giants of RNG, so let's get onto the map, or onto the Rift, for game 1 of this Best of 5 series. Of course, there's an LGD chant at the very end there, but there you can hear the RNG chant at their home stadium in Beijing. Whereas TOP, a couple of fans have already made the trip down to support their squad heading in to this big battle against RNG. And although they are the Davids to this Goliath fight, Rusty, TOP are a big organization. It's the biggest sporting brand in China that's, you know, taking hold of this team, and they've made a really good run in Split 2, or Summer Split of the LPL.
They went from a 3-16 Spring Split Fish to managing to finish 3rd in their conference to making the quarterfinals as well, winning that first round of playoffs against Suning Gaming. It was 3-2, and they looked very shaky at the start, so that's the thing you have to look at here for TOP specifically. Can they start game 1 with form? Because they are against the weaker iteration of the RNG roster comparatively to the rest of the subs that is waiting in the wings. TOP, this is their game to win.
It is. I mean, both Clement as well as Raz said that it is going to be a difficult match for TOP, even though RNG have brought in these substitutes today. It's going to be incredibly difficult, but let's see if they can take it to them, because if RNG decide that they want to play with their full roster, that task for TOP just got so much more difficult. Already a very good start for TOP. However, they have the push against RNG in the bottom lane. Cholcho has gone for lethal tempo on his Varus, so not opting for the Comet build that we saw very popular in 8.15.
Yeah, of course, a lot more people just going towards the on-hit build. I don't mind it. He's against the Tristana, so he will control the lane either way. If he opts into the lethality build, then he'd be choosing a mid-game type of composition. Now, they already have the Camille, they already have the Orianna, they have got mid-game strength, the 1.5, 2-item spikes that they'll have as well. And their team fighting, something that we've already mentioned through the draft phase, is going to be powerful, but it's about that early snowball. To bring it all the way back to RNG like we said before, if they can start this game with a bang, if they can get some early kills, get the snowball going, they may just be completely unstoppable when they go to the rest of the map and they carry those strengths through.
Well, RNG are going for the first play, bottom side of the map. Xinjiao looking for a gank here by MLXG. Ming still waiting in Fog of War. Skygus going on top of Tahm Kench first. Cat's going to get slowed down, just forces the flash out of Tahm Kench, but he's perfectly fine. That's another champion that got hit by a couple of nerfs in 8.16.
But it's a really good summon to spell Force. Of course, they can't go towards the Varus when a Tahm Kench is there to save you. They choose to get the damage done onto the TK. Now note that he has no potions remaining, and he has no flash. So he's actually in kill range for just the 2v2 potentially. When you actually put that into perspective, then MLXG's gank, whilst it wasn't a kill, that's wildly successful.
He's making another return gank towards the bottom lane, this time going through the brushes in the lane itself. Gonna now decide to go back to base instead, so he's not going to try and go for the return gank anytime soon. But we do see that swap taking place already, Rusty. Tatai has moved into the mid lane, and Xiaohu has rotated towards top side of the map to go into the matchup against Na.
Yeah, and the observers are on the pulse as well. Again, one of the strengths that RNG have when they weren't using an AD carry. They had Zatai playing mid, they had Xiaohu playing bottom. This guy can do it all. You put him in a lane, he'll be able to make that lane work as long as he's playing a mid lane champion, and he has got the favorable matchup into the Na. We said Aurelia can do it, but they chose based off what they thought would be a bigger strength, and we said namely the 2v2 between the jungler and the mid lane.
Yep, him and Uzi have played 3 different lanes this entire split. Rotating towards top side of the map to mid lane to the bottom position of the map as well. Tatai as well, he's been playing primarily mid lane, sometimes, most of the time top side of the map, sometimes in the mid lane. Half the split he was playing as a mid laner for RNG, and occasionally in the bottom lane when they required him to. But he used to be a mid laner, so this is his second home at the moment for Tatai.
Yeah, I mean, he's a mid laner turned top laner, turned mid laner turned top laner, playing mid lane for RNG in the quarterfinals. That says it all for Zatai and what he is capable of doing with a team and the strategic diversity that he's able to provide. Now, speaking of able, down in this bottom lane on the Tristana, has gone towards the Doran Shield Star, which is pretty much standard for a lot of AD carries now, with the press the attack build. And for him, you're not really looking at anything in the early game. The reason I bring him up is you're waiting a long time for that Tristana to be super painful, super relevant perhaps as well. Maybe 30-odd minutes in the game, depending on how it starts and how it snowballs, is when you'll really see him come online. And that's where you have to look at the bridging points. So how do we even get this Tristana to the late game? How do we make him super relevant? And a lot of that is the Aurelia. And putting him mid lane is a very good way to work with the Xin Zhao and snowball into a mid game. Get the Trinity Force spike, get that Tristana to late.
And on top of that, for Abel, press the attack's going to help him out in that mid lane itself. Synergizes very well with Tristana's E, make sure that that third attack really does hurt, and it's important because that's where most of Tristana's damage is going to be coming from, the mid game, where she is at her weakest. But has been rising in popularity. Going to try and take it to Cholcho, who's picked up Teleport in this matchup. So in a strict 2-on-2 skirmish, you'd expect Abel with the Summoner Spell here, Combat Summoner Spell advantage, to have a slight upper hand here.
It's only slight. Again, a lot of this is MLXG hovering in the area, so they have more...
He's been there for most of the game.
Yeah, he hasn't really left the bottom lane whatsoever, so the threat is a lot higher. And a lot of this game we mentioned was towards the junglers. Of course, we're going to take a second to look at Xiaohu first, and a lot of very flattering stats coming from the man, particularly that damage percent. And a lot of this is actually with his capabilities of playing Ryze above all of that. The intangibles that aren't even seen in stats, things that he can do on this champion, make those stats even better than they may appear.
Well, summer's meant to be the split where Xiaohu gets a buff. He's been very vocal about how he doesn't like the cold. He doesn't like that during spring split, you're just coming out of winter in China. Do you think that he's had the best of summer splits? Because it doesn't feel like Xiaohu's had the best performances so far, but by no means poor.
It's hard to fault him when you think back to his highlight moments, because he seriously has a lot of crazy highlight moments for himself. Xiaohu, summer did come a little bit early, in his spring finals even. He was able to find himself, and I don't think it's about summer and spring anymore. I think it's about separation and buffs by time of year. I think he's just on or off at certain moments now, and at the moment he seems very on.
Playing well for the side of RNG. As we mentioned, he's currently on the top side of the map. Did swap out his lanes to have the matchup against Moyu's Na. Moyu also starting in today's game, so we're not going to see Lies. We thought that that could be a big possibility, especially with Urgot being a big pick at the moment, as TOP get a good trade against me, just trying to stop this farm from crashing against the turret.
Yeah, pressuring the bottom lane 2v2. Now, at 7 minutes in the game, there's not a lot of damage onto that tower yet. You would hope, ideally, that a Varus could do a little bit more, but a Tristana naturally has that push with the explosive shot, so it's very hard to control that lane. And with MLXG having been down there the entire time, they haven't achieved what they wanted in just having the 2v2 pressure or control. RNG have been able to open up that area of the map, and we're hitting a point where you'd expect maybe Ming is unleashed a little bit here.
But what they haven't achieved in pressure and control, Cholcho has picked up in CS. He is already 25 CS ahead of Abel. He has a level advantage as well, so he is doing well in that lane. Which you do expect from a Varus, but again, hasn't related to anything on the map. And 15 to 25 gold is 3 to 400 gold. 15 to 25 CS is 3 to 400 gold. It's not going to matter too much to Abel.
That's really tragic for Korn, actually. So the blue buff resets here. They're trying to deny it from RNG. Resetting its health means that RNG can't come in and force a potential smite, force a potential steal, and maybe force some awkwardness. They really need that on Korn. You could see that his mana bar was waning as it stood. So that's a big win from TOP, and whilst it looked bad and a bit awkward that it reset, that was actually the correct decision, because resetting it prevents RNG from getting entry to it.
MLXG is on a very aggressive jungler early on. Not saying that XX is not on this Camille, but Xin Zhao can be a force to be reckoned with. He's actually waiting in the mid lane at the moment, XX, to try and see if he can get a gank off towards the tie.
Level 6 Camille's entirely capable of getting this. Yep. Keep in mind that a Tiamat Aurelia also pushes now. MLXG, he's on the top side of the map, and Moyu has stepped up. Now's a great time.
He's going to transform, tries to jump up towards Xiaohu, flays both them backwards. Moyu going to try and run away from this one. Xiaohu relentlessly chasing him down, but no Summoner Spells forced, just good damage coming out from RNG.
Yeah, and you'll see that the Na runs in a straight line back towards his turret. He knows that the Xin Zhao cannot follow. They're not going to use the Rise ultimate to pursue that any further as well. Xin Zhao cannot knock you back. So he does well to get out with his life, but that's the teleport not available. That was the ultimate used. And that's control of the lane that goes to Xiaohu. Now XX will be trying to trade on the opposite side of the map. Keep your eyes peeled on Ming and potentially Abel, maybe even Zatai, to see if they come over and prevent him.
XX is going to jump out of that pit. He's going to thank them very much for the leash. He's going to start on the Cloud Dragon himself, already at half health. Zatai rotates towards this objective. XX is way too low. I don't think he can join this fight. Should be a free dragon going to RNG.
He's going to try and steal.
Oh, he got it
too.
Piercing arrow to the dragon's knee. Chocho picks up the dragon after RNG took it from TOP.
Bit of cheeky redemption for TOP, and honestly, I would say nothing more. For me, if you ask me about playing League of Legends as a jungler, and it's a Cloud Dragon at 10 minutes, and you're a Camille by yourself, you probably don't want to do that objective, especially not if a single member of RNG can show up, because just Ming could have killed him. Yep. That's a big risk, and he's lucky that Cholcho's able to pick that one up.
Yeah, you could see on his player cam earlier, XX was laughing when Cholcho picked up the snipe onto the dragon. He was ecstatic that his teammate was able to save him from losing the dragon.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Cholcho. You just, just saved me some face there. But it's been a very quiet early game between these two teams. RNG are actually behind in gold, about 700-ish gold behind TOP.
Does that worry you at all, though, Fish? Because if I'm looking at the state of this game and I see it's even at 11 minutes, I feel like RNG are doing exactly what they want for themselves.
Makes me scared, though.
Scaling up to late-game teamfights, though, is absolutely what they want. It's in their wheelhouse as a team, regardless of who the AD carry is. It's Abel playing. It's a Tristana at that.
That's true. As we can see, the last time that Korn played during the LPL playoffs was in 2014 summer. Exactly 4 years ago, Rusty.
And that was with Starhorn Royal Club.
It was.
Quite a while. It has been for Korn. And you heard a little bit about his story on the analyst test. The thing you have to remember for Korn is that he knew he wasn't good enough for the LPL. He went down with the ship of Starhorn Royal Club to the LSPL, and he said, I will not come back until I believe I am good enough. And so now he's back. He's found himself again, and whatever that mental blocker was, it's gone, because he's found himself in playoffs.
He looks good. Korn has been looking good since he's joined TOP. And TOP have had a much better summer split than they did spring split. But I do like their composition coming into game one. If there was a composition that you could take to RNG, it would be a wombo comp. With the Na, with the Orianna, with the Varus, they have the potential to find one big team fight that wins them the game. And sometimes if you are not the favorite team going into a matchup, especially when you're going into a team like RNG, you need that little bit of luck, a little bit of an edge from your composition to try and pull you ahead in the later stages of the match. Yes, RNG can take it to the late game, but TOP can try and take it to them with their composition as well.
They could certainly try. If I was TOP and we had a fairly quiet early game, they just really wanted to play towards their lanes, strengths and weaknesses, play safe on the top side. Moyu's trying to do that. You can see his itemization choices as well. Entirely defensive, just wants to survive through that lane. Bottom lane is the place where they're meant to be strong. Bottom lane is now the place where they're currently moving, threatening the dive. I think this is just a power play for the turret above all else, and that's what they're after, because that's how they open up the map. TOP, if you get a Varus and a Tahm Kench free, you never know where they're going to be next.
Yep, that's true. So they do get the first turret in the bottom lane. Abel taking quite a bit of damage there.
That was a lot.
Moyu not afraid to step up and trade against them. Still holding on to that turret for some time. It has created a nice lead for Cholcho in the bottom lane. 40 CS over Abel. Picks up the first turret gold as well, which was shared by Cat, but he's going to be pretty happy with that.
You have to remember, RNG, they swapped lanes almost in acknowledgement of where the game state was for the 2v2. They wanted to open up the map and at least match the gold that TOP were about to get crashing down with the turrets that fell. So they will trade back. They will get a turret, but it is not the first blood of the game for turrets as well, so they're going to lose a bit of extra gold. And they lost so much tempo in doing that as well, taking an entire extra wave against the TK, that it was super risky of them to stay where they did.
Yep. That was just a stop-loss strategy. They knew that there was no way they're going to make a favorable trade, so they make the trade that makes the most sense, losing the least amount of gold. Still gives TOP a nice 1,500 gold lead over RNG, 14 minutes into this very quiet match. Rift Herald is still standing. TOP can swap their AD carry support towards the top side of the map, which they have done now. RNG are going to keep Ming as well as Abel on the top side of the map as well. But TOP, you can see Ninja Tabby already picked up, Blade of the Ruin King already picked up by Cholchol. Stormrazor has been complete by Abel. But Stormrazor has been hit by a couple of nerfs as well. So not looking as good recently.
Still a very good option, Stormrazor, as a first item. A guaranteed crit is always something that you can't take for granted. Champions like Jhin, of course, they relish in the fact that they get the crits there. For someone like Tristana, usually it's about entryway into killing carries, and with all the mobility and a potential assassination that you've got there as well, that'll help a lot. And Varus isn't known as a long-ranged AD, especially with the on-hit build. So there is a chance, and of course that's where you have to look at the rest of TOP's composition, because if Varus is hitting Tristana, something's gone a bit wacky. Now Camille is the person that will be diving onto Abel. I think that's actually a great opportunity there to kill him very quickly and play around that Camille composition, because there's no Galio to follow that one up. It's a shockwave, and that's not as simple to execute.
No, not at all. TOP will use this time to go and pick up Rift Herald for themselves. XX picks that one up and immediately throws it into the mid lane. So TOP are going to rotate straight away. One charge will be enough to take down that turret. 5 members strong. Mid lane out of turret is going to fall, and TOP with the power play, 2 turrets to 1.
Yeah, it was immediate as well, and I really like that from TOP. They have control of mid. The Orianna is handling Zatai on this Aurelia. See a CS lead growing between them. There's a CS lead in the bottom lane, and it even gets a second charge off onto that mid lane inner turret. Top lane's also the only place that's losing for TOP, but he's been losing with grace, you would say, Moyu.
Yep. He hasn't been dying, he hasn't been giving up kills. Moyu has been fine on the top side of the map, even when he was put into the lane against Abel, as well as Ming. He was able to trade effectively. He was able to prolong the life of his top lane outer turret. So he's been doing pretty well for himself in the top side of the map against Xiaohu, even though it was RNG that proactively made this swap coming into the game. Now we're checking in with RNG, who are going to be taking away some of their side of the jungle. Mountain Dragon is going to be coming back up, so TOP should be able to rotate and defend against those objectives. They haven't gotten too many big item power spikes for themselves here. Rusty, Luden's Echo has been picked up by Korn. Cholcho has picked up a pickaxe for himself, so he's half an item ahead of Abel for the time being. But they've picked up these gold leads. It hasn't really transitioned into anything just yet. You'd expect maybe in 2 to 3 minutes, that's when the big power spikes will start to take place for TOP.
Yeah, I mean, naturally in the LPL, and of course a lot of the world, they're actually just going to engage right now on Abel.
They follow through onto Abel. Gragas throws out the ultimate, doesn't connect, and he's dead. Abel gets executed there. First blood, going to go over to Korn.
And there's the first translation of the game. So they get the kills, they get the turrets, they snowball in mid lane as well, and the first kill goes down onto the rookie of Abel. He's taken apart. Tristana with no way out once the Camille ultimate was on, and a tragic timing on the jump.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for him, that'll be all she wrote. And then they get a dragon on top of this. TOP are playing very good League of Legends right now, and they are dismantling the sub-roster of RNG.
Well, we can take a look at that replay once again. Abel tried everything. Jumped, it followed through. Ultimate to knock Korn back. Even Ming's ultimate to try and knock him out of the Hextech ultimatum. Nothing could stop TOP from collapsing onto RNG's AD carry. That was the first blood going towards Korn against his previous organization. And it also translates to another Elemental Dragon for TOP. With that, TOP have picked up a 3,000 gold lead over RNG. We're just 17 minutes and 30 seconds into this match as well, and although it's been slow, this is now a sizable gold lead and a good tempo advantage that TOP have that they can work against RNG with.
I mean, frankly, this lead from TOP so far is a very promising start. You know, MLXG still aware of the red buff. A couple of the concerns that we had coming into this is, will TOP start all guns blazing? You know, will they come in at 100%? Last set we saw against Suning Gaming, they definitely were not. Suning Gaming were able to take the first 2 games of that best of 5 series. This time around, they look on form in their first game. They are ready to go. Korn's also the recipient of that first blood on the Orianna. That is a big Orianna that can team fight. They're engaging.
They're engaging onto XX as well. He gets the hook shot and is able to disengage. He's low on hit points, and She's going to flash forward, but Cat's able to save him. Only has a 4-second time to keep him alive. Spits him back out, but RNG have collapsed. Xiaohu's now in this fight as well. Irelia going to throw out her ultimate, trying to lock them all down. Cat taking some damage. RNG going to chase forward. Double kill being picked up. Korn tries to save the day, but it's 3 kills going to RNG.
RNG collapsing first. They want the plays and they get what they're after. So the kills are there. Now we're only 18 minutes and 40 seconds into the game. Tragically for RNG positioning on the map. They're even posturing themselves towards the Baron, but not to be this time around. However, you take those kills. Finally, they've been able to stem the bleeding, slow down the advantages that their opponents are getting, and set themselves up. And it was a good start here for TOP on the attempt to disengage, but note that there's no turrets. The teleports were significantly faster from Xiaohu and from Zatai, and the teleport very late from Na. Honestly, no point in completing it at this point in the game, so he just has to back away and kind of call that one a day. RNG, they're able to pull the punch first.
They're able to do it first, which was the main thing. There was no way RNG were really taking a fight to TOP with that advantage, with that lead, unless they were able to start the fight first. Catching out XX was the first part of it. The big rotations were the next parts of those fights for RNG. They've clawed back the lead as well. It's now back to 1,500, so they halved the gold lead that TOP previously had.
And that's RNG in a nutshell. They pull the fight. They make the plays that they're after, and they do it so much faster than their opponents. The TOP were not able to react effectively, not able to react in time. And this is one of those things you could look at TOP's positioning on the map and say that's a mistake. That's always possible, but they're looking at the last remaining outer turret. So they were trying to make the play. It's just that RNG on a dime are able to switch so aggressively towards you, and they didn't expect that deep vision to even be there.
Observers showing that Baron has now spawned 20 minutes into the match. RNG are actually looking to see if they can punish Moyu even further, but like you were pointing to earlier, Rusty, Moyu's been playing fine this entire match. Yes, he's on Na, and yes, he's into a lane against Xiaohu on Rise, which does well into this matchup, but he's not falling too far behind. He's about 30-odd CS behind. He hasn't died. But we did have some questions as to, you know, Moyu is starting for TOP. We thought that Lies could potentially come in, especially with Urgot being so popular at the moment. That could be the pick that TOP went towards, but yeah, starting with Moyu for game one at least.
Urgot was even banned by TOP in this first game as well, taking that from their opponents, not letting Zatai get the pick. Zatai is a big carry player, so I wonder if the decision here for TOP was that we want to go towards a team fight more, you know, centric type of player, not go towards our Urgot Darius guy. So they picked the Na for Moyu this time around. They're going to look towards those team fights for certain. When you look at the split pushing, I don't think there's ever a world where he wins the split push regardless of who he's against. The reason I say that is RNG are actually one of the best teams in the world at doing what no other teams do. And that's not just 1-3-1-ing, but that's having a 3-2-0 lane assignment where both Zatai and Xiaohu put themselves in a side lane. And so Moyu, if there's ever a world where he feels confident and he's against the Saiyan Aurelia at 3 items, suddenly Rise is there and he's dead regardless. There is no winning situation for him. He has to teleport, he has to team fight, and that's what all of TOP are after.
Well, you can see that he's got the team fighting build as well. He's not going towards the Rage Blade Knight, he's not going towards Blade of the Ruined King, not going towards the Hurricane. He's gone for Black Cleaver, and he's going for more defensive items or hybrid items between tank as well as aggressiveness for that Na. So really looking for the team fights, and that makes sense. TOP's team composition is about the wombo combo between Na as well as Camille, Orianna, Varus, and then you have the protection coming out from Tahm Kench. That's the name of the game here. They need to catch out RNG in these team fights, but like we saw earlier, it depends who gets to the fight first. If RNG find a pick right away, TOP can no longer execute their wombo composition.
But speaking towards that, now the Baron is up. 22 minutes in the game, you have to look at the vision dance that both teams are currently taking place in. Now, TOP have the first control of the river area, and if you think about it from RNG's perspective, you can understand why a lot of their vision is very defensive. You want to place vision at Baron? Absolutely. Now try face-checking into an Orianna Shockwave or a Varus ultimate when you're doing that. It means that you can't do that unless you're grouping as 5 or you have vision of where your opponents are. So Ming was defending control as he put in the back of the Baron pit, and that was the furthest forward that he was willing to go, because face-checking is certain death.
Well, we're scaling into about 23 minutes in the match here, Rusty. Stormrazor is complete by Abel with the rapid fire cannon. So the next item that Tristana will be looking towards is the Infinity Edge to get the 60% crit as well as the extra 10% true damage on the crits. But until then, this is the weak mid-game for Tristana. You've got 30% crit. It's not empowered crit either by the Infinity Edge. You've got the Stormrazor, which is buffed up slightly by the additional crit you get for the first auto attack, but nothing too strong. It's TOP.
They're going to hit the Baron.
This is what Dan Gaming used to be known for. They're moving towards Baron at about 20 minutes into the match.
And it's really low already, Fish.
Spotted out by RNG. Ming going to throw out the ultimate. It's going to be enough. No, it's not. Orianna going to secure that Baron for TOP. They sneak a Baron away from RNG, pick up a 3,000 gold lead, and RNG just don't quite know what hit them.
And I think XX will just be saying thank you so much, Korn, for securing that one, because there were spells being littered towards the Baron pit itself. itself, but they don't steal it away. RNG, once again, we spoke towards how hard it is for them to get successful vision down, especially neutral vision, mostly defensive. They're able to get that one. Look at the control wards in the top side of the river for TOP. That's how they get the Baron for free. They do so much damage to it so quickly. RNG just caught recalling, and suddenly TOP with this Baron buff, they go coast to coast. And they'll also get themselves the Mountain Dragon.
Mountain Dragon being picked up, extra Goldie being picked up, and an early Baron buff being picked up by TOP. Analysts said that, you know, it's not going to look good for TOP going into game one, even though RNG are using a lot of their substitutes for this match. It's still the best opportunity for TOP to take a map off of RNG. They no longer have the luxury of having the extra point like they did earlier in the week when they played their first match of playoffs. Thanks to their seeding, now it's completely even. It's 0-0 in a best of 5. This is the map where they need to start that upset and start to make RNG feel a little bit shaky, because until this point in time, nobody has considered TOP to have a chance.
This is their moment in the spotlight to do exactly that. For Korn, for all of TOP, redemption. And they're doing it without Marin in the main roster. Remember that he's there as a substitute, so just waiting in the wings if they ever decide they need their Batman to come in. Is available, but TOP right now in this game, they've got the Baron. They've got the capabilities of sieging, and Orianna with a Baron buff threatens the Shockwave. RNG are looking for a flank, and they're looking to engage as soon as possible. I think the risk here is that if they let TOP siege, they just seed everything.
Ming was looking to try and go for a fight. Tai was waiting in Fog of War as well. But as soon as he steps up, TOP stop him from moving any further forward. He is on top of a control ward, so TOP can't quite spot him through Fog of War at the moment.
I mean, the thing is, if he's on a flank and they find an opportunity to engage TOP, that Shockwave 1 hits probably 2 of the team.
That's true. I do like this strategy coming out from OU. We did say he's building towards team fights. Black Cleaver as well as Frozen Mallet have been picked up, but he's showing that now with the Baron buff, he's happy to split push. That extra buff is going to make it much more difficult for Satai or Xiaohu to deal it with him.
Oh no.
Ultimate from Ming's going to whiff. Cho is perfectly fine. It's a big shield of that as well. Xiaohu forced to flash away as XX tries to join the fight. Moyu over the wall. Varus ultimate being thrown as well. TOP have used a lot of abilities here, but RNG just don't have any way to try and fight back against this. They lose their mid lane inhibitor.
Yeah, I mean, all of these spells being thrown at their opponents, keep in mind that Korn still has his Shockwave, so that's the biggest threat. RNG, the second that Gragas cask had no connection, found no purchase on anyone, they just had to back away. They had to concede the objectives. And my concern is that that happens again. All Korn needs to do now, no Gragas barrels available, is step up and zone them away with the ball, or people die.
Whoa.
That's a teleport.
That's a big flank. Irelia going to the back lines. MLSG going to jump in first. They lock down XX. He jumps up the top by Xiaohu. MLSG still going further in. Shockwave only collects with the one person. So far, the first kill going towards the side of TOP. Irelia is going to fall. Xiaohu's pushing forward. Abel jumping into the back lines, looking for some damage. Forced to heal. Cat's in trouble. He's going to fall.
Well,
Rise ultimate trying to bring them further into the back lines. Moyu does get locked down. Double kill being picked up by Ming. And the flank from RNG is successful. They get some kills for themselves on the side of TOP. Cho is the last man left alive, but he is inside of RNG's base. There is nowhere for him to go. He tries to take it to Abel, gets taken down, and RNG win the team fight.
Ming's able to come up clutch there as well, hit the body slam. At the end of the day, they get nothing, TOP. They are all gone. Baron's gone. And RNG, they still lose an inhib, but they save their bottom lane with a clutch teleport play from Zatai as well. They are so good at picking their moments, and they're so good at just on a whim taking the team fight opportunities. You see the Aurelia is already teleported in. MLXG with a sick ultimate separates them. And then, of course, Zatai gets the reset. So the Shockwave kills MLXG and only finds Zatai, but Zatai is still going. And Xiaohu through all of this has been free hitting, and he just takes them all completely apart. Nice heal from Abel as well to make sure that Xiaohu stays alive. The rest of the fight's easy as you wrote. Cho separated from Moyu, who is just dead.
I mean, Abel was technically free hitting during that fight as well. He was able to, you know, have unimpeded access to not only XX, but Moyu as well. XX was taken down so early into that fight thanks to the burst damage that came out from Xiaohu, which meant that he could reset the fight. You could even see in the final skirmish against Cho, a couple of auto attacks would have been enough to take him down. He had to wait for Ming to back him up. That's how far ahead TOP were at that point. And that's not saying they're still not ahead of RNG. It might be 8 kills to 3 in RNG's favor, but they are 4,000 gold behind TOP.
Yeah, they were massively far ahead prior to that fight, and they still are. Like you mentioned, they are still far ahead. Far enough ahead that they should be able to continue the map state as it were. But what they have given RNG is gold. That gold gets them ever closer to that late game team fighting that they're after. And we already saw one teleport play from Zatai. It's entirely possible that Rise can throw a Xin Zhao into the back lines. And right quick, they'll get themselves another team fight just like you saw from RNG. You can't discount that possibility. The big takeaway for me right now, lots of summoners are missing.
Lots of summoners were used in that final fight. Zatai still has his flash. Abel and Ming both have their flashes as well. But for start of TOP, only Cholcho
There they go, throwing the Xin.
Rise ultimate, bringing them back to the backlines. MLG going to go forward. He's taking a lot of damage. Jumps on top of the AD carry. Moyu forced back. He's going to turn Mega in a second, but Abel getting that first kill. Moyu going to die. Everybody is going to die. RNG get the second flanking play, and they take down TOP. That's an ace to them, a clean ace at that.
And the teleport immediately from Xiaohu as well, going towards top lane. They're going to try and get every little detail that they possibly can on the Rift right now after another successful teamfight victory in the exact same place as before. RNG are just teamfighting brilliantly. TOP are just coming to them and saying, let's dance, let's take it. But first of all, Moyu's Naba is not even close to Mega. Korn, in a very awkward position once again from MLXG, is saved by Cat, who then gets knocked in. So he can't even hit the shockwave. He's irrelevant. And then Zatai, during all of this, has just been wrecking the backline, taking them apart piece by piece. This teamfight from RNG, they just threw chaos into the TOP ranks, and it is so easy to clean up a team fight if you can do that.
Against Baron buff in the first fight, then against a 6,000 gold deficit, RNG have pulled the game back, and it's now in their favor. 13-3 when it comes to kills on the map. There's still 3 turrets behind TOP, but the gold is dead even. And Abel is well and truly online. 60% crit. He has the Infinity Edge going for himself. He's going back to shop, picking up a QSS for himself as well, and the Brawler Gloves, which will be doubled by the Infinity Edge passive as well. Infernal Dragon going their way. Everything is looking up for RNG now, especially after such a slow start from TOP that somehow went in their favor. They snuck Baron as well, but none of that was enough to actually take down RNG.
You know what I like about Abel's build? You pointed it out already, the Brawler's Glove. I think that is an immediate strength. Because they want to fight right now. They're already snowballed. They've won 2 fights in a row. And he's feeling confident enough that instead of building, control wards or going towards lifesteal, something of the likes, he wants to be immediately powerful, get that extra crit chance in, because they're going to team fight again as soon as they possibly are able to do so. For TOP, you want to wait for summoner spells. You want the flash from XX, from Korn, and from Moyu. You want to take the fights front to back. You want to be much more standard. RNG are just throwing spanners into the works constantly, and it's going their way.
Are the numbers 10% again for Brawler's Gloves just on its own? So 10% for Brawler Gloves for crit. He already had 60% from the
80.
30, which was picked up by Rapid Fire Cannon, 10% from Brawler's Gloves, and then doubled by the Infinity Edge. That's a big difference between 60 to 80%. It's just over half of the time to more often than not.
They've also reduced the price of Brawler's Glove by 200 again. So TOP, now they still have control of the Baron area. They haven't cleared that one pesky ward. RNG being on the opposite side of the map, that is not a place you would expect Vision to be, but they've got it. And that is potentially teleport Vision in the next 30 seconds to a minute when Zatai has that available. Right now, though, TOP, they're looking for the picks.
They are.
However, RNG should be very aware that it's not being done because of that one ward in place.
On top of that, they were kind of waiting, it seemed, for Gnar to wear off of Mega. He was Mega. He was threatening in the mid lane as well.
You just want to hit the Shockwave or the Camille hookshot. They're the biggest hits that you need right now. Mega Gnar is always one of those blessings and curses.
Look at the patience coming out from TOP, though. They've been stuck inside the side lane brush for quite some time. They had a control ward waiting there as well.
TOP waited for the bottom wave to crash. They acknowledge that someone has to come and answer. And they've also just seen that ward will spot them. So they immediately disengage.
Ooh.
Where are you going?
Cat's going to bring XX towards the backlines. XX going to jump in and force the fight onto MLG, but he gets popped immediately. Cat forced the flash away. RNG going to try and start a fight for themselves. Cholcho using his ultimate to keep RNG there. But they're going to settle for the pick onto XX, and this is the guy that we said needs to be the carry for TOP, but what was that?
That's carrying RNG to control of the Baron area. That was super deep from him, almost unnecessary. I don't know if he has a stopwatch available and he was going to try and bait, buy some time for the rest of the team, but the distance he covered was far too great for anyone else to get there. For an Orianna to cover that distance as a mid-range mage here, the Shockwave is nigh on impossible. TOP, they'll hold it down. They won't lose too much for it. Cholcho's Varus ultimate covered a lot of them. But RNG get control. They start off the Baron. The risk here for RNG is they've grouped up.
Yep, Shockwave is available. Moyu is trying to get as much rage stacks as possible, but RNG want to force the fight.
Whoa!
Shockwave onto 3 people, it's good, but MLG is still alive. Cholcho taking a lot of damage, gets knocked back, but able to take it down by Zatai. The alley-oop comes out for RNG. They pick up another pick, but it was so close to disaster there. The Shockwave
almost ripped through RNG.
Yeah, they played the numbers game very close to their chest. It was super close to losing that one from just a good shockwave of Korn, but now it's not available. They don't know if RNG are doing the Baron, and look at Xiaohu waiting in the wings, looking for his chance, and he's on.
Collapses on towards XX, takes a lot of damage. Tai just jumps in and cleans up. Two-man death squad coming up from RNG. They move towards Baron. Emma, she's already started this, has his smites available. A couple of low health bars coming out from the side of RNG, but the damage has already been done to the lineup of TOP. A Baron will go the way of RNG.
They just beat them down time and again. The momentum shifts towards RNG, and that's all it takes for games like this to be over. This is still the sub-roster of RNG. Keep that in mind. It's not the full star-studded lineup that you're used to seeing from them with Uzi gone. But it's still very easy for them to team fight incredibly well. It doesn't matter what player's on the roster. They've still got that capability. Now, this is the shockwave that almost rips them apart. Super close to getting the kills. MLX even flashing into the arrow. But the end result is that they separate the team. That Rise Ultimate placement split the team completely, and so they were able to get it if they survived the shockwave.
You can see as well now Abel is not afraid. He's no longer the weak early mid-game Tristana. It's well and truly late game now for RNG. 90% crits on Tristana. He's got that QSS. The Tiger to take quite a bit of damage. Moyu's still chasing them down. He's happy to continue chasing this one. Gets knocked back by Abel. Ming's throwing out the ultimate as well just to make sure that RNG disengage.
And remember, that it's a 4,000 lead to RNG, but this game isn't over. The team fighting composition still lies in the hands of TOP. RNG's composition is very difficult to execute in certain moments. Sometimes if a single thing could go wrong, then the team fight is over. If Abel's caught out of position, very hard for them to win a front to back. That's what you're looking at here for TOP. Once again, slow down the pace of this game. Try and establish some vision control. Bring RNG to you. But that is one of the hardest tasks in League of Legends. Ming is so on the pulse.
I mean, the best example is going to be SKT from last year at Worlds against EDG, 10,000 gold behind. Faker hits a shockwave, and it's all over. TOP can still do that. They have the tools of the composition to do that, and they're not that far behind RNG. Yes, the Baron buff is in favor of RNG, but it's still only 3,000 gold worth of item advantages.
The one thing missing from that example is just the Rakan, you know, something that can go in immediately. Right now it's a 0-5 Camille. But the advantage that TOP have got, at the very least, is that there's Guardian Angels online. So with those GAs, people that otherwise may not want to engage because you're guaranteed to die from it, can take that moment. And for TOP, all it takes is one moment, and you could end this game through the middle lane. And an open inhib available for themselves.
Especially with the long death timers of at 36 minutes into the match. If you get a single squad wipe, that's probably going to be RNG falling over here. But Elder Dragon has come up.
Yep.
These two teams were religious with picking up Elemental Dragons, so the Elder Dragon did spawn very close to the 35-minute mark. RNG, however, they get a split push going for themselves. Xiaohu's able to take down the top lane inhibitor turret. The rest of RNG take down mid lane outer turret, and they make their way towards the Elder Dragon.
And who's going to stop them from doing the Elder? You come over and suddenly that Xiaohu, oh, actually they're going to go towards Xiaohu.
Hello, goodbye.
He's out.
He keeps doing it. How does he keep doing this?
The Wizard in the top lane gives them the Elder as well. So very clean stuff here from RNG. Ming uses the cask, knocks him away. Elder Dragon secured. Baron and Elder on RNG, man, they are ready to go.
I'm pretty sure we can make a highlight of Xiaohu just realm warping away from the most dangerous situations I've ever seen them a part of. Right there, another case of it. Elder Dragon's going to go the way of RNG. They take down the top lane inhibitor turret as well. Xiaohu escapes with his life. But here's that one more time.
And we'll see what moment he realizes, because Tahm Kench has got a pretty long animation on the ultimate. Basically says, I'm coming in. So from the moment it comes in, yeah, no hesitation from Xiaohu. He's also going to root Moyu in place in Mega Gnar. That was super clutch. If he didn't do that, Mega Gnar comes in, scoops him into the wall. He's donezo.
Yep, stun or scoop, both would be able to stop Rise from ultimating away. It would have just been a pick that goes the way of TOP. So I'm actually curious as to why they didn't try to fight for that Elder. 3,000 gold behind is not that big of a disadvantage.
They consciously chose to try and steal the Elder. I'm pretty sure XX was coming nearby. Ming was the one who knocked him away. So that was the game plan for them. Kill Xiaohu, try and get a 4v5. Even if we don't get the Elder, it's at worst a 4v4. And they felt confident enough. You know, with Xiaohu gone, maybe they can win the team fight.
Potentially. But we never got to see anything take place because Xiaohu did escape. TOP didn't get anything for that rotation. They did not get the steal off. And RNG are just so strong now. You've got a level 18 Rise who is at 6 items here, Rusty. 5.5 items for Abel at the moment.
Also a 5-1 and 6 Aurelia at that. So they have got all the kills there. KDAs look outstanding. And here they go again, round 2. Can we catch Xiaohu?
They're trying to. Xiaohu's going to try and lock down Moyu. Moyu is going to get Mega Gnar, throws out the ultimate, doesn't connect, and he just says, I'm going to run straight towards your base. Xiaohu's just going to buy as much time as possible. He will get taken down here, Rusty, but look at how much RNG have taken away from TOP during this time. They pushed towards the inhibitor.
Yeah, a lot of time purchased there by Xiaohu. He knew he was dead. And he also knew that if he went into that Rise ultimate, he was very dead. So he kept walking. He got the Mega Gnar ultimate out. He actually got a lot of resources expended by TOP just to secure him in place to get a single kill. Inhib's gone, controller mid lane's gone. They don't get the blue buff as well. That's taken away. Cute stuff there from Xiaohu and someone who had an inevitable fate.
Don't know what to tell you. Public enemy #1 here, Xiaohu. 6-1 and 9, so that was his first death. So they did get some shutdown gold to the side of TOP. They'd be happy with that. But they are still 6,000 gold behind RNG in map 1 of this best of 5 series, Rusty. And yes, TOP put up a very good fight. It was different to what we expected. We expected TOP to come out swinging and try and, take scrappy, brawl-heavy fights to RNG. It was very mid-game focused. It was very macro-focused. They worked around the composition they drafted for themselves very well. Just RNG knew every single time they could throw a counter-attack, every time they could sneak in that uppercut, they found a way to do so against TOP. And that it's just one of the strengths that RNG have that separates them from a lot of the other teams in the LPL.
And their other strength is their 1-3-1 potentially as well. The thing is, at this state of the game, the next Baron buff will probably just be the deciding factor.
Yeah.
It'll end the game if RNG get it, because they can 1-3-1 and no one can stop them. And Inhibitor's already gone. Rise and Aurelia could even sit in a single lane together now with Inhib gone. And they can just corral minions through and pull TOP apart. For TOP, this is their best opportunity to win the game, because that RNG need to group up for that area if you are there. And top lane's the only Inhib that they have lost, so it's the closest in proximity for a Gnar to beat.
How do you fight Abel now, though? That's 2 Knight's Vows being picked up by RNG, so you'd expect one onto Xiaohu or Tsutai, and then the other one onto Abel.
You just press every R button.
He's got 6 items, though. That's Abel with 6 items complete on Tristana, one of them being a Mercurial Scimitar, so it's just so difficult to lock down.
To be fair, none of those are a Guardian Angel. So if he dies, he absolutely dies for real. And you got a Shockwave that's, for realsies. I mean, he's got a lot of items, definitely, but all of them are damaged, and so does an Orianna. So again, I've been talking about Khorne a lot, but he is the most important feature in this team fight. He can lock that down, and it's easy to lock down when you've got XX on a Camille. And he's got a Guardian Angel. This is cute, though. They took it. They had an opportunity. I like it.
Sneaky coming out from RNG. It only forces a teleport out of Cholchol to get into this mid lane and group up with the rest of TOP. They're looking for a fight. Cholchol's able to lock down MLXG, get some good damage on towards the jungler. Tsutai going to take a lot of damage himself. Moyu trying to go forward, but they actually knock XX out of his Guardian Angel. Tsutai's going to fall as well. MLXG getting some good damage out. Abel taking that first shot towards XX. Abel jumping over the back lines. Look at him. He's going against Cholchol. Good damage there. Shockwave. Not good. Abel, how is he still alive? The Tristana is playing Mario at the moment. At the way Abel's bouncing around, Khorne's going to be the final death here. A quadra kill going his way. And RNG should take the game.
And Abel says, no Uzi, no problems for me. Comes in super clutch in the team fight. Does give RNG the game 1 victory. It was hard fought for them, and they should just be able to push to the Nexus now.
You've got to be kidding me. That was a big fight being picked by TOP. It looked like they had the upper hand. But again, RNG knew exactly how they were going to disengage, exactly when they were going to throw the counter punch, and during that time looked flawless in doing so. Not the best of games, but RNG still pick up game 1 of this best of 5 series.
It was a slow early start to the game. They played slowly. They were content with that as well. TOP did find advantages, and those advantages became sizable once they snuck the Baron away. And you looked at the state of that game and you thought, this is it. TOP, they've won game 1. But RNG with a clutch moment, it's Tsutai's teleport. That's the thing you have to look at. Almost Amazing J-esque in the decision-making from RNG, and it was very clutch to get those team fights. But then you look past that, the later game stages, and Abel, once he was snowballed, played out of his mind.
That's all it took. It just took RNG to find those few fights to actually get the snowball going. And at that point, you can see exactly where things went wrong for TOP. About 25 minutes in, RNG fought back, and from then on out, it was an uphill battle for TOP. They tried their hardest to fight back, but their hardest just wasn't enough. Even Cholchol, 23,000 damage for his team.
Yeah. I mean, the place that I have to look at for TOP is the 4K damage dealer on your screen in XX. He did not have the best game #1, and a lot of TOP's success, when you really narrow it down, is if the jungler is doing well, then they tend to win the games, and this time around it wasn't the case at all. MLXG, I thought in a feast or famine type of matchup against XX, maybe in the XX wheelhouse, MLXG just played slow League of Legends.
Yep, XX was the man that we said for TOP, he needs to be the carry. Yes, Korn is looking really strong. Yes, Moyu even, we sung him a lot of praises in that match 1. And Cholcho's really stepping up today paired with Cat. But he is the carry for TOP. He really needs to step up, especially throughout the rest of this best of 5 series. If not, it's going to be near impossible to take down RNG.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at the early focus of the Gragas here from RNG. If I was TOP, I'd be picking that Gragas up for myself and put it in the hands of XX.
Yeah. Let's see if they do pick up the Gragas later on, you know, put it onto XX, try something different going into Game 2. Rusty, any immediate thoughts besides that Gragas? What would you do if you were TOP going into Game 2 against RNG?
I would be just changing the jungle in general. Maybe not the Gragas, but the jungle is the place that I would have to be shifting for certain.
Well, let's see if they do actually change things going into Map 2. But for now, let's send it back to our analyst to break down Game 1.
Thank you so much, Fish. And to be honest, that just looked like a showcase coming out from RNG. It's just like, let's take the game to around 45, minutes, just make it, relatively clean, and just like have each of our individual players just show what they're capable of.
And that game really just came down to the teamfight ability of RNG. That's the thing about RNG. It doesn't matter about the game state. The only thing that matters is the tools they have. And when you give them things that they're so familiar with, like the Gragas, like the Ryze, they can make things happen. They're very familiar in playing unorthodox teamfights, and that's what really swung the game.
Yeah, teamfights are a big one. And remember the control that TOP had, the goal that they had, was in a pocket that wasn't ordinarily. They don't have that in the regular season. The regular season they play through topside through their jungle. This time around it was actually their bottom lane that had the majority of the gold. So this is a very I would say these are just not situations they've been in the past. And so for Chocho to be able to have this lead, it felt uncomfortable for them to play through that bottom lane.
Yeah, just walking around, around town with just your pockets lined with gold.
Oh, yeah.
It just feels really uncomfortable right now. But let's start taking a look at these replays. So first off, we need to highlight the top lane and start looking at Zatai, because I think that Zatai specifically, I mean, we know that he's a top laner to mid laner, top laner, mid laner, top laner. He's the hybrid solo lane player, but he'll make things happen.
And it comes down to RNG being able to play around mastery of champions, because Xiaohu has only played 2 Aurelia games throughout the year. Throughout the year, he's played 2 games. So it's like, hey, you know what? Corrin is a great Aurelia player. Zatai is a great Aurelia player. If you want to be able to at least contest that, then give Zatai Aurelia, put him mid. He's done that with the Darius numerous times during the regular season. So it's straight down his wheelhouse, and we were able to see what he was able to do with the game.
Yeah, exactly. And we can actually take a look at the games he's played in mid lane and also top lane over his career. I mean, 4 games played as mid, 15 in the top lane as well. And his KDA just as good in both respective roles. We know he can play tanks, he can play carries. The guy can literally do it all. And this guy just has so much under his belt. Of course, he's one of the probably oldest legacy players we still have left playing in the LPL.
And one of the biggest, I would say one of the biggest tools that he has as a player is the fact that he's willing to pick up a pick so quickly. So if you ask him, hey, you know what, we need to practice the Aurelia fairly quickly. He's like, I'm a top laner, I'm not really playing. I suppose, picks it up. He can actually master a champion super fast. That's what he was known as when he was playing in Invictus Gaming's roster, and now that's the tools RNG has with him on the lineup.
Yeah, that's really the scary thing about RNG. They have 13 different player and position combinations they can throw at you, and what that really means is they have expanded champion pools in a single position, while also having extra mastery on those players who do specialize in those single picks. And I think a big one was the Ryze there. If there's one team where I don't want to see a Ryze on, it is RNG, because they're the best playmaking team when they do get that Realm Warp, when they do get Xiaohu going. So maybe they want to consider in throwing that into bans. That has been a linchpin for their success.
Yeah, it's just literally his best champion. So he was able to pick it up for himself, go into what is a favorable matchup into the top lane, and then just utilize what is their strategy. So for me, this was a game where the solo lanes for RNG took complete and total control. And sure, Chocho has a lot of the gold. It's just on him to basically move alongside XX. But then we wanted to see Moyu. Moyu's had 67% kill participation of a top laner, second in the regular season, goes into the playoff series. In this last series, 84%. He was moving across the map. He didn't even know what a laning phase was. and then he was locked down within his own lane, not in just in a bad matchup, but they would 2v1 him in certain instances, so he actually was not able to help out his team for the most part of the game.
Yeah. That being said, TOP did manage to accrue an advantage to the point they were sieging up against RNG, but it was going back to that stat you mentioned. When RNG initiate fights, they will mess you up near 80% of the time, and we saw that back-to-back in the bottom lane. It was literally, I was like, is this a replay right now, or is this a new fight? But then I saw that Zatai actually got to the end of the fight and he was still alive. I was like, okay, this is a different fight. But the same place, they managed to just destroy them. This is the second time around, and Zatai had an even cleaner fight.
And the dangerous thing about this is that they don't even need teleport wards to really even make this happen. They have the Realm Orb to really start this initiation, and they're playing off their strength of faster communication during the team fights themselves to really create chaos on TOP's rosters. You look at this, they split up the front line, they split up the back line, and they're willing to pick targets out much faster than TOP can react to.
We've seen teams in the LPL utilize this strategy, but they took it from RNG. An incredibly creative team in how they utilize it. One nice nugget in this team fight was actually just the Tristana throwing Chocho out of the fight entirely through that wall. So Chocho, who is where you want to play around, he is your team fight. He is your AD carry in this fight that actually is going to be doing it for you, but not impactful at all in that one. So Xiao, who's going to be taking the man of the match, rightfully so, complete control in the laning phase, and then these team fights was super impactful.
And he just puts on a show later in the game when he knows the game is really firmly in his spot. He goes onto the split push. He's not really worried about dying, but he wants his team to get the most out of the map as possible. Definitely a great performance, great use of Realm Warp.
Yeah.
And a lot of things I feel like they did well was that they timed their aggression when Mori did not have his Mega Gnar ult. He did not get a single Mega Gnar ult out, aside from the level 6 gank that came into the top side. The rest of the time, RNG, they had their eyes on that Rage Bar. They went in when there was no response from that point. So I think the Gnar pick is going to be very dangerous going forward.
Even in the small situation when Xiaohu is in the top lane splitting it out, going for the inhibitor, and you know the only way you're going to be able to cancel his ultimate, his Realm Warp, was that ultimate coming out of Gnar. Not going to happen. Stay in place, buddy. I'm heading out.
All right, we're going to take a short break before we get onto our second match. So stick with us. We'll be here with Game 2 right after this.
I think you 100% ban Ryze.